Claire was a curious college student, drawn to things that were old and mysterious. She loved exploring old houses with their creaky floors and faded beauty. One fall afternoon, she found herself on the edge of town, standing before a crumbling Victorian mansion hidden behind a mess of weeds. The paint was peeling off, like scabs, and the house stood in an unsettling silence, broken only by the gentle rustling of leaves. It was as if the air itself was holding its breath, afraid to disturb whatever secrets were hidden inside. Claire felt drawn to the house. Ignoring the feeling of unease creeping up her spine, she carefully walked up the creaky wooden steps of the porch. The heavy wooden door, weathered and scarred, groaned open as if it didn't want to reveal its secrets. A musty smell, like decay and forgotten memories, hit Claire's senses. But her curiosity only grew stronger. She wanted to uncover the mysteries hidden within the mansion's shadowy heart. The entrance hall, once grand, was now a mess, covered in dust and neglect. Cobwebs hung from the chandeliers, casting eerie shadows in the dim light. A cold wind, like the house itself was breathing, swept through the hallway, making the candles Claire had lit flicker and dance, casting strange shapes on the walls. As Claire went deeper into the dimly lit mansion, her curiosity started to turn into a gnawing feeling of unease. The silence was now heavy, broken only by the sound of her own footsteps echoing. She felt like unseen eyes were watching her every move, sending shivers down her spine. Then, she heard it. A whisper, faint and unclear, seemed to come from the walls themselves. It was a low, sad sound, filled with a sadness that sent chills down her spine. She stopped, trying to figure out where the whisper was coming from, but it seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The air grew heavy with a strange energy, pressing down on her. Drawn by some unseen force, Claire found herself at the entrance of a grand library. The air around her seemed to hum with an ancient energy, as if the very stones of the building were alive with history. She hesitated for a moment, feeling a strange mix of fear and curiosity, before stepping inside. Its shelves, reaching from floor to ceiling, were packed with leather-bound books, their titles hinting at forgotten knowledge and mysterious secrets. Each book seemed to have a story of its own, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to seek it. As she stepped inside, the whispers grew louder, swirling around her like the voices of lost souls. They seemed to be speaking in a language she couldn't understand, yet their tone was unmistakably one of warning and despair. The smell of old paper filled her nose, mixed with the faint scent of decaying leather. It was a scent that spoke of age and neglect, of stories long forgotten and left to rot in the dark corners of the library. Her fingers traced the spines of the books, their titles a mix of the familiar and the strange. Some were written in languages she recognized, while others were in scripts that seemed almost alien. Suddenly, a book near the top shelf seemed to call to her. It was as if it had a voice of its own, whispering her name and beckoning her to come closer. It was a heavy book, bound in what looked like human skin, its surface cold and oddly soft. The cover was adorned with strange symbols that seemed to shift and change as she looked at them. As she reached for it, the whispers became screams. The air around her grew colder, and she felt a chill run down her spine. It was as if the library itself was trying to warn her, to keep her from uncovering the secrets hidden within the pages of the book. Panic surged through Claire as she realized the house was alive. The walls seemed to breathe, and the air felt thick with malevolence. She could feel eyes on her, watching her every move. Every room shifted, turning into a maze. Corridors twisted, leading her in circles. The house delighted in her confusion and fear. She ran through endless hallways, her heart pounding. Footsteps echoed, blending with whispers from the walls. She found a room with a massive, ornate mirror. The frame had strange symbols that seemed to move. Its silver surface pulsed with an unnatural light, drawing her in. She felt an urge to touch it. Claire saw a vortex of shadows and whispers. The shadows reached out and the whispers grew louder. Skeletal hands shot out, gripping her wrists. She was pulled into the vortex, her terrified face the last thing she saw before everything went black. As Claire struggled against the grip that held her captive, the whispers became a single chilling voice. It was as if the very air around her had turned malevolent, pressing in on her from all sides. The house's hunger was palpable, a deep longing for a soul to claim. It was not just a structure, it was a living entity, pulsating with a sinister life force. The house craved company, even if it came from fear and despair. Every creak and whisper was a testament to its insatiable appetite for human souls. The voice echoed through her bones, crushing her hope. Claire could feel the despair of those who had come before her, their hopelessness seeping into her very being. The house had taken countless souls, their cries forever silenced. Each soul added to its power, making it stronger, more malevolent. Claire felt the house's presence closing in, its dark tendrils wrapping around her soul. She was fighting not just for her life, but for her very soul. For a brief moment, a flicker of hope sparked in Claire's terrified heart. She remembered an old legend, whispered among those who dared to explore haunted places. A legend that spoke of calming such entities, of offering a sacrifice to satisfy their hunger. Maybe, she dared to hope, if she could give the house something it craved, something as valuable as her own soul, she might escape. Clinging to this fragile hope, Claire reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, silver locket. It was a precious family heirloom, said to hold the kind spirit of an ancestor. With trembling fingers, she opened the locket, revealing a tiny portrait of a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. As Claire held out the locket towards the mirror, a wave of icy cold washed over her, putting out the last bit of hope within her. The ghostly face in the mirror twisted into a horrifying sneer, its voice dripping with scorn as it revealed the uselessness of her desperate attempt. The house didn't want trinkets or sentimental offerings. It craved the essence of life itself, the pure energy of a soul. The locket slipped from Claire's numb fingers, falling in slow motion. The mirror's surface rippled, the ghostly face growing larger and clearer. Claire felt a searing pain as if her very being was being pulled out and reshaped into something both familiar and utterly strange. The struggle was short, the outcome unavoidable. Claire's screams were swallowed by the mirror, her reflection, now a twisted and horrifying mockery of its former self, trapped within. The house had claimed its prize, its hunger temporarily satisfied. But this wasn't the end. The house was a predator, always looking for new prey to trap in its web of whispers and shadows. And so, the mansion stood silent once more, its secrets hidden deep within its old walls, waiting, watching, listening, for the day when another curious soul would cross its threshold and become another tragic tale whispered among the countless others trapped within the House of Endless Whispers.